Eyes wide open. Deep in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, something ancient lingers. Whispers in the fog, footsteps on empty trails, and shadows that don't belong. Buried in Appalachia's past and still haunting its present. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's take a look.
We have in our society a certain segment that no matter what, if something falls outside of that box of approved stuff, then they're not going to believe it. And worse yet, they will make fun of people. They will ridicule people. They will call people liars. They will call people stupid. And nobody wants to be treated like that. That's why the vast majority of people who encounter extraordinary things just keep it to themselves. I have learned this after 3.5, 4 years of interviewing witnesses. Nobody wants to be made fun of or ridiculed or called a liar. Imagine if everybody who's had experiences out of the ordinary came forward and talked about it. Now, the testimony of witnesses, we see similarities spanning the spectrum.
I think I just found a squatter's house out in the national forest. Am I tripping, or does that look like a roughly built house over there? I think I'm gonna get out of here.
As a little kid, you're just given these rules and you follow them because that's what you do. But as you get older, you start questioning things like, why am I not allowed to whistle in the woods? How come as soon as it gets dark, mom starts pulling all the curtains closed? And then you start to have bizarre experiences, and your friends start to have strange things happen to them. And then you start reading the stories of people going missing and never found. Their bodies never recovered. It's just like they vanished into thin air. Yeah, there's animals. There's people in the woods that live off the grid away from society, but I don't think those things are causing all of these strange occurrences. Truth is, I don't know what it is, and when I ask people that are much older and much wiser than me, they seem very hesitant to talk about it.
Starting with the fact that it is over 480 million years old, meaning that they have witnessed mass extinctions, shifting continents. They were there before Pangea and dinosaurs or dragons, whatever you prefer. But they also have deeply rooted history. We're talking about Black Appalachian history, Native Appalachian heritage, especially Cherokee, and even Scott and Irish roots. Now, the people who live in the mountains have always gotten a bad rep just based on the things that hikers who have gone through have experienced. However, they're known for bluegrass music. They've been called a plethora of names. I won't say them because I don't want to get flagged or say the wrong ones or anything offensive. But there have been many stories that people have personally told of people who have either disappeared with no footprints, no trace, no sound, nothing.
Feral people. Subject is feral people in West Virginia. All right. I am from West Virginia. Yes, we have feral people living in the woods. We don't bother them, and they usually don't bother us. Granted, you don't go encroaching in their territory, which all of the deep woods is pretty much their territory. Growing up my whole life, I've always known that there are people that live in these woods, in these mountains, but the people that live in these mountains that is so deep a normal person couldn't find their way out of, they're normally there because they don't want to be found. They don't want to be bothered. They just want to be left alone. They want to live off the land in peace. They're not cannibals, generally. Some are. Most are not, though. Most of them eat like squirrels and deers and fish and things like that. They make killer moonshine, though. I mean, like, top notch. Like silk down the throat.
Yo, what the f*** is that?
Yo, what's...
Run! Run!
Guys, wait!
Run!
Oh, no.
Now, have you ever heard of the feral people from Appalachia? Growing up in Appalachia, I had the time of my life. My friends and I spent our weekends riding dirt bikes and ATVs through the hills and forests, camping out under the stars, but one ride stands out. It's the day that I stopped doubting the stories of the feral people of Appalachia. One Saturday, we were out riding the trails. Miles into the forest, we stopped by a creek with a sandy bank to check for animal tracks, something we always did. Deer, turkey, typical stuff. But that day we found a human footprint, a big one. It was so strange that we actually went back to the house, grabbed my parents, and even took Polaroids of it. We thought it was cool, but didn't dwell on it too much. We headed back out riding deeper into the woods. Later, we crossed another creek, and that's when we saw him. Perched on a rock about 50 yards away was this wild-looking man. He was filthy, stringy hair, and ragged, dirty clothes. At first, we thought it might have just been a homeless man or lost. One of my friends yelled out to him, but instead of responding, the man bolted on all fours. He climbed up the ridge like an animal and disappeared into the trees. We looked at each other like we had just seen a ghost. But it was a man on all fours that, like an animal, climbed up a sheer bluff and disappeared. Needless to say, we were spooked and we headed straight back home. When we told my stepdad, he just laughed, calling it a hermit or a feral person. We didn't know what to think. Fast forward 1 year, same group of friends, same trail. This time we were camping out in the woods. We set up our tents and built the fire, not even thinking what had happened the year before. But as the sun went down, things got weird. We started hearing footsteps circling around the camp. Not animal footsteps, human ones. At first, we thought it was just my stepdad and his buddies playing a prank on us. But when a massive rock came flying into the camp, landing inches from one of my friends, we knew this wasn't a joke. Someone could have got seriously hurt there. Panic set in. We ditched everything. Tents, gear, the works. We jumped on our ATVs and dirt bikes, and as we tore through the trails back to my house, we could hear them running behind us. I looked back over my shoulder and saw a person running on all fours. Whatever it was keeping up with us, chasing us all the way out of the forest. That ride home was the fastest I have ever gone in my life. To this day, I'm convinced that we encountered the feral people the old timers always talked about, the ones that lived in the deep woods, stealing the food, staying hidden. Whatever we saw, it wasn't an animal, and it definitely wasn't a prank. From that point forward, I never went back into that same area ever again.
So as I am miles off of the trail here, I look over and I'm seeing something, and they had some sort of hide that was covered like over, almost like a cloak on their head that kind of protruded broadly. That's kind of how I knew it was a hide, because it was really squared things off. And I think that this might be kind of what people are seeing, is these broad, almost cloaks of hides that these individuals are wearing. And I was staring at it, and like the eyes were like mesmerizing. They weren't white at all. They weren't like discolored or looked sickly or anything like that, but these eyes were like orange. They were almost like reflective in the sun. But I guess maybe some eye diseases, I don't know, I haven't researched eye diseases that could reflect orange, so there could be an explanation for that. But this was kind of like shocking to me. And at this point, I'd already tracked one set of footprints back into an area where they're actually, back in the day, I mean, this site at the very, very earliest was probably from the 90s, and just like, whoa, that was kind of weird, and kind of walk off from the situation. After I had found one set of tracks leading to another set of multiple tracks, I realized that I'm in a situation that I don't really need to be in. It doesn't matter if there are feral people or if there are people out here. I'm walking into something that I don't need to be in, because it's just, I'm alone. Yes, I have a firearm, but these people, the people are way more experienced in the mountains than I am. And I know my shit. So they would just dust me, be a thing. So at this point, I realized that I got to turn around and I got to leave. And as I'm leaving, I've got my camera off. I will have to do this a lot of times, because I have to turn my camera off because I have to pay attention to what I'm doing. It's really difficult to film, talk to a camera, and navigate the wilderness. I turn it off because I don't really think, in the back of my mind, I've dismissed all of what I've seen, and I start walking away. And as I'm walking across the mountain, I see this figure just in elbows sprinting down the side of this mountain, and then just right into this tunnel. It looked like a rock, honestly. I thought it was a rock, but it wasn't. It's some sort of tunnel system. And then I'm seeing it, I'm like, holy crap, like I just saw this not once but twice. So at this point, like, I gotta go. In this time, I'm listening very carefully to all of these different birds. And then when I'm going out to these locations where these people are vanishing and things are happening, I'm noticing another type of bird sound. It sounds like a fake bird. I mean, it's an accurate call. The majority of people wouldn't pick up on it. It's taken me a long time to pick up on this call, but there is this strange call that happens kind of shortly before you start kind of hear the clicking. Now, in this encounter that happened to me recently, I had this kind of image of what these feral people looked like. There was a lot of descriptions talking about large boils on their face, pronounced jaws, overly muscular in tone, very similar to kind of the Neanderthal side of things. And I've really tried to keep somewhat of a rational view on this and really kind of headed my course on trying to figure out exactly what's happening here, because it's not living in the Appalachians. The majority of people who live here will agree that there is some sort of other population living in the mountains. Are there homeless people? Yeah. Are there people running from the law? Yeah. There is also something else happening.
On the top of that hill, there's another tunnel, and I just watched one of them go into it. You see that? There's a black hole. Like, where is it? Right there. And I just saw a freaking figure running and go into it. I tried to get my camera up, but by the time I did, he was already in the freaking tunnel. So something's going on here. Totally boot, because I was like running, trying to get the hell out of there.
Very not good obscenities to someone else. Right before that last gunshot, it sounded like a truck revving up or something, like in gravel, throwing gravel or something. Yeah. And then that gunshot was like, that one sounded like a rifle. That last one, the other one sounded like a handgun. That last one, like,
you could make out a few things they were saying. It wasn't good.
Things we won't repeat on here, but it was like blood-curdling screaming. I've never witnessed anybody screaming like that.
stuff that I feel needs to be reported to the police department.
Okay.
I was hunting, me and a buddy were hunting, and at about 6:45, we heard gunshots, which is not uncommon. But then for 30 minutes straight or so, there was lots of screaming and just people, obscenities, and it sounded like something really bad was going on over there, and there was 20 or more gunshots ended up happening. We didn't know what to do, and we had no service, so we're trying to report and see if anything had been reported about there. I have pins dropped on a map about how far we were from where we think this was occurring.
On the ground and by my tree stand where I had the encounter last time. It was right here behind that trees where he kept poking out before. Okay, I keep hearing these sounds. Also, guys, another thing I need to point out, I don't look at my camera all the time. I look off in the distance because it does help me the way I'm. Wow, the way I'm filming. I just heard something. Okay guys, hold on 1 second. Okay guys, there's something. Whoa guys, right there guys. What the f? And it moved. Should I approach it? Holy, I knew it. Guys, I knew this because I had this gut feeling, man, that I was being watched when I come out earlier.
Oh! Hello? Oh! Yo, hello? Yo. Okay, go. They're fucking running us. Go. Hey, mother. Hey. Yo, we're leaving. Oh, damn it, you. Yep. Oh. Yo, we're not with you, dude. We're rolling out. We were just. Sonny, where you at? Oh. I'm going, Sonny. Yo, hang on a second. Hang on, hold the light. He's probably just fishing. He's probably this fishing spot. He's just fishing. No, go. Just go. Yo, he's holding his hands up. See, I told you, we just the guy's fishing spot. See him? I guess, I don't know. He probably saw our lights in him. Listen. Okay, Sonny. I'm trying to not run into you. What are you doing? Keep coming. Ow, Briar. No doubt. Oh boy. That's gonna be a challenge. See, I can't even see the guy's light now. Huh? I can't even see his light. I'm stuck. Oh. Let's keep going. What was that? Sonny, pull up here. You hear that bumping noise?
Yeah, what the is that?
It's not like a car stereo thump. It's like boom, boom. Like really, really, really deep.
Is that thunder?
It ain't supposed to rain or anything tonight, so I don't know why we would be hearing thunder. Let's just look around us real quick. You hear what I mean, though?
Yeah.
Don't stop. Come on. Come on. He's got it back on, bro. We gotta go. Yo, he's coming. Sonny, he's coming. Let me get my key out. My light. Sonny, come on. Okay. Come on. Yo, there he is. You take this and record. Come on. Okay. Yo, he's running. The van's almost Yo, shit behind us, bro. Is he on a bike? Look behind us. Is he on a bike? I can't see anything out back. Alright, still on the trail.
You ain't from around here, are you?
Just passing through.
Let's keep on, then.
Last folks come through here was when the green berries was out, looking for Dennis.
I'm gonna head out now.
November 2023, O. Sargi and his crew went into the Appalachian Mountains for a 24-hour camping challenge, searching for the feral people that locals claim stalk these abandoned trails.
So the people at Walmart were not telling lies. There are actual bears out here.
Jeez.
There are black bears. Black bears aren't as dangerous as grizzlies, so I don't think we're gonna run into any grizzlies while we're out on the trails.
No, you know what they say about black bears? You just gotta go like this, and then they'll run away.
The trail was officially closed with warning signs, but they went in anyway, and almost immediately found strange carvings on trees that looked like symbols.
We just know to be careful now because we've talked to a lot of locals. Whoa. Almost tripped.
And this specific trail, no one goes out anymore. It's been abandoned.
It is an abandoned trail for some reason. There was a sign at the beginning of the parking lot far away from here. It said this trail in particular that we're walking is closed down for some reason. Yo, this looks like some language, dude. That is not English.
What do you think it says?
I don't know, but it could be like communication between like the feral people.
Possibly.
Right? Like I'm just speculating here, but it could be.
It also, I mean, it looks like people put their initials too, just like how people do that for fun.
Yeah, but
it's
dude,
a bit of a combination of things, it looks like.
But here's the thing, for the people that do talk about the feral people, they don't know how they communicate. It's not like they communicate with cell phones. They don't have, there's no reception out here.
No, there isn't. I heard that the feral people actually communicate with clicking.
Yeah, clicking, whistling, type of howling, and singing from what I've heard too. I'm like laughing.
I heard that was laughing, right?
It sound like it, or like a creepy laugh. Look at this gorge down here. We're still gonna be making our way all the way down that way. But there's like some weird gorge. Dude, what is this staircase?
There's like a broken ladder here.
I feel so uneven coming down here. It's crazy.
You gotta be careful. Now I kind of know why they closed the trail.
Yeah.
Look at this. Come see this.
Dude, I see a cave up there.
Where?
There's a cave up in the mountain right there. I thought I seen someone. And dude, there's also this weird structure here. Usually this means this is like their headquarters. Oh, look. I think this is their checkpoint. Checkpoint? I mean, maybe they're living here. Oh, Jacob, there's another house down there. Do you see anyone walking? There was a weird, like, I thought I seen a weird guy over there.
Over down there?
Yeah.
Dude, you might have just saw a feral person down there.
You'd hear that? A faint whistle. I heard that. it's closed. This trail was closed for a reason, guys. Hey, there's a chance we actually just stumbled upon a feral camp, so keep your eyes open. I'm glad you have the baseball bat. I mean, I don't plan on hurting anyone, as long as they're nice to us, right? Yeah, just for self-defense. Look, trail closed. There's a house there. Whoa, look at this view. Hello? Anyone here? Oh my God, there's a mine shaft. There's an old abandoned mine shaft in the mountains, and this might be where the feral people are living. I saw a guy going off that way. He's wearing like a camo hoodie or a jacket of some sort. Oh, this is crazy. What? Look at this old mining cart. Guys, this is crazy. Oh, they've blocked it off. Well, there's no way he got in here because they blocked this off. They're shaking it. Okay, it's a bird. Scared the crap out of me. There's a footprint here. That's not mine. It's a massive footprint. Guys, oh my God. Look at my shoe, and I'm size 11.5. And then look at this shoe. Oh, is that a bone? Okay, that's not a bone. I thought it was a bone. Guys, there's a massive footprint here. What the heck? The feral people have large feet. They say they're like 7 feet large, massive.
Stories say feral people grow to 7 feet tall, and this print looked like it came from someone that size. While filming the ruins of an old power plant, Mo saw movement inside one of the buildings and called out, but got no answer, just more movement in the shadows watching him.
I just seen someone over here. I literally just seen someone with the tip of my eye. Hello? Anyone here? I swear to God, I just seen someone with the tip of my eye. Okay guys, as you can see, I've switched over to my other camera. At least now I can zoom into things. Definitely better in the dark. And it does have night vision, so when it gets dark out here, it's gonna come in handy because we're not gonna be able to see anything. This is so terrifying. If this is this scary at this time, imagine when the sun goes down. The level of danger is gonna elevate a million times more. So I'm gonna make my way down to the river and check this out. There's tracks here. I hear someone. Hello? Hey! Is that you? Oh, there's Aldo. I seen someone down here. Saw someone? Yeah, inside the building. I was changing cameras and there was somebody moving around in there. Look at this. This looks like something out of the movies. Holy. Take you guys in here. Holy wow. I'm literally in the middle of the structure right now. This big silo that's collapsed. You want dangerous? This is dangerous. Doesn't get any more dangerous than this. Wow. Alright, I think I spent enough time. Hello? Something was just moving up there.
To this day, nobody knows who was living in those structures or what was stalking them through the ruins. The massive footprint, the pale figure in camouflage, the movement in the shadows, and that whistle all point to something in those mountains that doesn't want to be found.
The subject we're going to cover tonight is without a doubt horrifying. It's disturbing. And I don't mind admitting to you and in front of the rest of the world that it's a subject that terrifies me. As a person who doesn't like to stay on the beaten path, I'm not a marked trail kind of guy. I want to get out into the deepest, wildest parts of the wilderness to experience the dynamics and the beauty of nature at 100% rate. I can tell you that this subject gives me great pause. Tonight we're going to be talking about the subject of feral people. Specifically, do feral people still exist in the Appalachian Mountains and foothills? Now, I ask you to keep in mind that I'm not talking about people who have recently or in the recent past detached from society and now they're living a life of semi-isolation as survivalists or as homeless people. Not at all. I'm talking about people whose ancestors, generations and generations ago, for whatever reasons, under whatever circumstances, became isolated or chose isolation in the deep wilderness in pockets up and down the Appalachian Mountains and foothills. The question is, do their descendants still exist in the Appalachian Mountains today? Evidence suggests that they do, in fact, still exist. Eyewitness testimonies. More importantly, to me, it's the word of the mountain people that say, yes, they do exist. And I give heavy weight to the word of the mountain people. It is said that these feral people have their own language, that they have their own system of communication for purposes of locating one another at distance, for purposes of facilitating the hunt, for purposes of alerting the presence of intruders, and even for purposes of setting up attacks and ambushes. It is said that they display the characteristics of generations of inbreeding. And common sense dictates that, being that there is the severe state of their isolation. It is believed that they are very, very violent. And while they would certainly, at all costs, avoid any accidental contact with any element of the outside world, many believe, including myself, that they will perch on the boundary between their world and our world. Hiding, watching, being stealthy, waiting. When we intrude into their world, and they are given the opportunity to raid an unattended camp for gear, for food, for clothes, for shoes, for whatever they can use, that they'll do it. But the most terrifying aspect of this subject is the fact that there is plenty of evidence and testimony that tells us that they will opportunistically resort to cannibalism, which means as true hunter-gatherers, they will not only engage in hunting wildlife, but they'll engage in hunting us. An undisputed fact is that thousands of people in the wildernesses of North America have gone missing, vanished, no explanation, never to be seen again. And the Appalachian Mountains, certainly no stranger to that story. So sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and give me a few minutes of your time, especially if you're a hiker or a camper or a hunter or a fisherman. I think that tonight's subject is worth paying attention to. We're going to first cover an account of an experience by a man whose name is James. And then in part 2, we'll finish talking about his account, and then we'll cover the body of evidence around feral people. And I will share with you an experience that I had when I was with a group of people and something we ran across in the wilderness of Western North Carolina. Now, our witness, James, in the mid-1970s was a young college student. And James was born and raised just past the extreme western end of the South Mountains of North Carolina. So it can be said that he was a child of two worlds, that he was a child of the foothills and he was a child of the big mountains, as I call them. He would have been at home in the South Mountains. He would have been equally at home in the Linville Gorge or Roan Mountain or Wilson's Creek, to name a few places. Definitely a person, in the way he was raised, hunting and fishing, definitely a person at home in the woods. But it was during his time at the university when he developed a passion, a lifelong passion for something that he had never experienced before. He was invited and took the opportunity to go on a long range hiking and camping trip along the Appalachian Trail with some of his college friends. And that was a passion that never left him the rest of his life. And to this day, if he could still do it, he would do it. In the summer of 1977, James became completely disillusioned with the university scene and just tired of college life. And he elected not to go back that fall to start his senior year at the university. So he moved back home. He got a job in a furniture plant and he moved on with his life. Later in that year, near the end of the year, James began to plan a trip, a vacation. And this trip would take place in the springtime. He secured time off from work. Springtime came in the second week of April, 1978. James stepped off on this great adventure. Now his intent was to hike deep into this wilderness area he had never explored before, set up a base camp, and then each day he was there for a week, he would hike in a different direction to explore, to experience nature, to see what he could see. He budgeted time that day so that he would arrive at his desired destination with a couple hours to spare. He needed a couple hours of daylight to get camp set up, to get him some food, to have a minute to stop and rest. And that's what he did. And he sat there, enjoying a cup of coffee, enjoying a smoke, got in bed early. The next morning woke up before the sun was up. He took time to make him some breakfast, have some coffee, and then to secure his camp, to pull his food and anything that smelled like food. So what you do is you put them in bags, you tie a rope around it, you throw the rope over a high branch in a tree, you pull those bags up off the ground a fair distance as a countermeasure against bears. If you don't, you're going to have the snout of a bear in your tent, or you'll come back and find your camp decimated. That's what bears do. And as it turned out, apparently there's other things that do that as well. But he did all of that morning. He donned his backpack, he rucked up, booted up, and left out on his journey. Just about 5 minutes into his hike, James heard a noise that was completely foreign to him, something he had never heard in the woods before. Now keep in mind, when you're familiar with a certain wilderness area, a certain part of the country, you know what sounds to expect. You know what sounds the wildlife makes. You know the sounds of trees creaking against one another, and so on and so forth. But James knew that was not a natural sound in the wilderness. James said that he somehow instinctively felt that this clicking noise was a noise being made by a human using their mouth. He thought about it a minute. It bothered him some, but he filed it away and continued on. Just about 5 more minutes down the trail, he realized that he had a hitchhiker in his boot. He had put on his boot, got a pebble or a piece of debris in his boot, and gravity took over, worked its way down, and he was stepping on it every other step. He had to deal with it. He stopped, sat down against a tree, took his boot off, and sure enough, there was that pebble. He put his boot back on and got ready to take that next step, and he heard a distinctive sound. This time he knew exactly what it was. It was the sound of human voices, and these human voices were coming from the direction of his camp, but they weren't speaking English. They just didn't sound right. Off in the distance, he heard a sound, and he knew exactly what it was. It was the sound of human voices, except the words that he was picking up didn't sound English. They didn't sound intelligible at all. And also, to him, and no disrespect to anyone, but these voices sounded like the sound deaf people make when they speak. He contemplated on what he should do. Should he just chalk it up to, well, there's people here doing the same thing that I am, just hiking, enjoying nature? Or should he go back and check on his camp? But by then, the curiosity was what was getting him. Certainly concerned about his camp, but curiosity dictated that he turn around and go back toward camp. He quickened his pace and came to within a few minutes of his camp. It wasn't in sight yet, but he heard those strange sounding voices again. this time much closer. And he slowed his pace in an effort to be more stealthy and be more quiet. Then another unexpected thing happened. James was hit by a very foul odor. And he stopped in his tracks. And instantly, he was almost nauseated. It was not the musky smell of a bear or the pungent smell of a skunk or any smell that belonged in the forest. For a second, he couldn't make heads or tails of it. But then it hit him. Woven in this foul stench was the unmistakable smell of human body odor. And he started walking again, drawing closer to his camp, feeling more uneasy with every step. He slowed his steps even more. His camp would be just over the next rise and would come into sight. Then he heard the clicking sound again, but from two directions, from off to his left and off to his right. He came close to the top of that rise. The clicking sound had just occurred, and he heard a ruckus. He heard scurrying in the direction of his camp. He heard the sound of what seemed to be maybe one of his pots being dropped on the ground. And he heard the strange sound of one of those voices, except this time the voice was much higher pitched. It sounded in a panic even. And he heard running from his left and from his right. The leaf litter in the Appalachian forest, if it hasn't rained lately, the leaf litter, walking or running in it, will give you away every time unless you're ultra stealthy. He topped the rise and caught his first glimpse of his camp. But on the opposite side of his camp, just a couple of seconds, he caught a glimpse of three individuals running in the opposite direction. Now, there was one that caught his attention. And this person was running with a strange, gimpy gait. And it was much slower than, this person was much slower than the other two. And this person didn't have a shirt on. It was very odd considering it was still cold weather. Not the kind of weather to be running around the woods without a shirt on. And from the back, this person seemed to be somewhat misshapen. One shoulder was much lower than the other. That arm hung unnaturally low. And off the back of the head flowed this stringy, thin hair, almost down to mid-back. But all three of the figures disappeared into the distance of the woods. And he saw the total picture of his camp for the first time, and it was destroyed. Anger hit him, and he stopped in his tracks right at his fire pit and just began to yell and shout expletives. But all went quiet. He looked around. Both bags containing his food and his food items were cut out of the tree and gone, with the exception of a pot and a lid. And the tent was flattened. Still angry, he yelled again. He yelled louder this time. And off in the distance, on three sides of him, he heard wailing, like a wailing sound. And to him, it sounded almost celebratory, and it reminded him in a way of the Cherokee war whoops, if you've ever heard that, or even the famous rebel yell, only repeatedly. And by then, the feeling that he had was near panic. He wanted out of there. He didn't even bother picking up what little was left. He already had his pack on, and he moved out swiftly. And off in the distance again, he heard more noise. It was a wailing, chattering laughter. And it chilled his blood. And then a voice shouting something completely unintelligible. James left, and he got out of there safely. But he returned the next day with reinforcements. He had called two friends, apprised them of the situation. Came back the next day with the intent to camp overnight and do the exact same thing he had done that day before. They came and camped, and then they feigned as though they were going to go hiking. They even left things sitting conspicuously out in the camp. Desirable things, left an axe and Nothing. They set up what we would call in the military a listening post / observation post about 10 minutes away, and nothing. They moved closer, set another while longer. Nothing happened. They got back to camp. Everything was as it should have been. Nothing was missing. James never returned to that area to camp alone, but he and his friends came back a few more times and hiked the area, just seeing what they could find, and they found nothing. James had been alone in the deep woods, and he was probably watched the day he hiked in. He was probably watched all night, and he was watched that morning when he left camp until he got out of sight. And there's no doubt that these individuals came in to raid his camp. But when the one thing that worked in his favor, he left camp, and unbeknownst to them, just about 10 minutes away, he had stopped for that break where he had some coffee and was contemplating all this craziness. And they obviously thought he was further away. And he began to hear him, and you know the story. But what we don't know, what else might have they had in store for James? Who were these people? What were they? Where did they come from? And I'm certainly curious as to what you think. You make of this story as you will. You can believe it. You cannot believe it. I personally believe it. And take it as a tale of warning. I finished James' story up in part 2, and now in part 3, we're just going to discuss everything in general again and talk about why it's possible. And I'll tell you about an experience that I had. I don't mean to suggest that the phenomena of feral people is endemic just to Appalachia, the American South, as though I'm making fun of somebody or saying that people, mountain people or southern people are more likely to become feral. That's ridiculous. That's nonsense. That's all I'll say about that. I'm not going to make fun of my own people. I'm a curious person. I'm a researcher and investigator, and this subject caught my attention, and I started wanting some answers. The phenomena of feral people is worldwide, and reports and discussion of feral people go back into antiquity. Now, these areas that has this concentration of reports, they all have something in common. Vast areas of uninhabited wildernesses of some type or another. Appalachian Mountains, Appalachian foothills, absolutely the case. Vast wilderness. Most of Appalachia is still wilderness. And I go on record with great confidence as saying there's parts of Appalachia where no man or woman has ever stepped. You could hide a herd of woolly mammoths out there for all we know. I'm not suggesting that. That's hyperbole. But you could have woolly mammoths out there and they might never be detected. In other words, there's no telling what's hidden in this vast wilderness that we don't know about yet. And we certainly don't know everything that we think we know. The Appalachian Mountains run for 2,000 miles, for crying out loud. So you look at everything and you boil it down to its simplest form. There are more than just a few reports. And these reports, this isn't a recent thing. They go back more than 100 years. The Appalachian wilderness itself is more than capable of sustaining these pockets of feral people. The available building materials in the Appalachian hardwood forest is great, and a primitive people would know how to make shelter out of these materials to get away from the elements. Then you factor in that there's vast cave systems, and also dotted on the landscape up and down the mountains and foothills are these abandoned homesteads, barns. There's way out in the middle of nowhere. I've run across them. The available food in the Appalachian Mountains and foothills. The diversity of animal life is great and plentiful, and also there's the plants. Very, very biodiverse area in terms of plants for food and for medicine. But it's the disappearances that propel me more than anything else. There's some famous cases. One of these cases is the very tragic case of Dennis Lloyd Martin, a little 6-year-old boy who in June of 1969, while in the Great Smoky Mountains, he just vanished while within yards of his family. Some odd things about that case, but one of the things that gets my attention the most is the fact that from the highest levels of government, the special forces out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, was ordered to the Great Smoky Mountains to look for this little boy. the Green Berets got there and they informed the authorities and they informed the people running the searches. They said, we won't be a part of you. We've hired a couple of guides. We're going out by ourselves. And it is said that they did in fact encounter feral people, and it is also said that they killed some feral people. And I tend to believe that. That's certainly not the kind of thing that our government is going to admit to, obviously, but that's well within reason to believe that. The amazing thing is this: the total number of feral people would be very, very minuscule compared to the population. These scant numbers of feral people spread out over such a vast wilderness, yet there's still all of these reports. We see in many cases great detail, specific detail provided, to include from Eyewitness James. People report across the board these deformed facial features, twisted bodies and spines, oddly enough cataracts, very thick, white, milky cataracts. Thinning, sparse, stringy hair, unclothed or clothed in rags, odd hairiness on their bodies, strange vocal, guttural grunts and sounds, people hearing an unknown language and then hearing these clicks and tree knocks and whistles and things like that, that apparently is the way that they would communicate at distance. The bottom line is that it is well within reason that isolated people can and probably do survive in the Appalachian Mountains. Now, on to my experience. In May of 2021, I was invited to western Rutherford County to investigate a cave, this small cave. Now, this cave had been revealed after a controlled burn. There was a lot of foliage there. I believe they said there were some rhododendron bushes very thick. The controlled burn burned all that away, and there was the cave. So I, along with a group of people, went to explore it. Now, on the way there, after it was in the wilderness, we got very lucky. We discovered a single track. Now, you have to keep in mind, on the forest floor of the Appalachian hardwood belt, it's very difficult to find a track, much less a track with detail, due to the leaf litter and the debris and the weather. But we got very lucky and we found a single track. Now, the maker of this track had apparently stepped over a log, barefooted, stepped over a log, and there was a giant patch of what's called ground cedar. It's a spreading ground cover. But as they stepped over the log, they slipped. And at the terminus of that slippage, they left an absolutely beautiful track. 8.5 inches long, definitely human. But two odd things about the track. The toes were splayed like this. Our feet, because we wear shoes, our toes are like this. Their toes were splayed. But more importantly, that track, this person was completely and overtly flat-footed and compared to the length, an extraordinary width to the track. After doing some research and talking to some people in the know, that's a sign of a person who has went their whole life walking barefooted. Now, what regular person out of our society would be walking around the forest in the middle of nowhere in the Appalachians without shoes on? Our modern, tender, vulnerable feet could never do that. We don't have the calluses, but somebody who has done it their whole life is going to have very, very tough feet. So we have to explain this track. Now, the cave itself, the entrance in and out, there was great wear. It was obviously made by flat-footedness. It wasn't animal hooves or claws. So something was going in and out of that cave. It has to be explained. So what's the takeaway from this? Well, why would people go feral? Well, a lot of reasons. They just get isolated, or there's some isolated cases of maybe people who isolated themselves for religious reasons. But it is more than possible. Now, I don't mean to suggest that we bother these people or try to harm them or capture them in any way. We leave them alone. But I'm saying this: if you're a hiker or a camper or you're prone to be out there in the wilderness, just be careful and be aware.
First off, when I say feral, I ain't talking about no monster. This ain't no Hills Have Eyes type shit. Right? I mean people that have lived apart from society for so long that they have quite literally adapted different. They move differently than we do, right? And Appalachia, with its 500 million year old cave system that's 90% unexplored, is the one place that theory actually holds water. Listen, long before the U.S. existed, indigenous tribes like the Cherokee talked about the moon-eyed people. These were large-eyed, pale people that lived underground, would come out at night because they avoided sunlight, and sometimes they would even kidnap children. And boom, early settlers move in. Then the stories start about entire families living off in the mountains, separated from society, far away from town, avoiding outsiders, and speaking in a weird dialect. Coal mines start crisscrossing the region in the 1800s and the 1900s, and some coal miners would actually get stuck underground for weeks at a time. When they would emerge, they would have pale skin, be disoriented, unable to tolerate sunlight. Look, some locals still talking about some miners didn't come back up. Well, where the f did they go, Susan? Are they still down there? Listen, hear me out. If humans did live underground for generations, we would eventually adapt. We would have larger pupils to see in the dark. We would have pale skin from lack of sunlight. We would move differently because we're quite literally crawling around caves. We would also have heightened hearing and sensitivity to light and night vision, like I said. So I'm not talking about on some supernatural shit. I'm just talking about what happens when biology evolves in the dark. Like, think of the fish that live at the bottom of the ocean. They look wild. Listen, for decades, hikers and rangers in Appalachia have reported seeing naked people in the woods running through the trees. They've also reported people being covered in mud, crawling on all fours. And then there's the reports of whistling or mimicking voices in the woods, which, on that note, don't you ever go in the woods whistling. And then they report structures that don't look like they were made by campers, like they're made out of sticks. And that's also when we note the out of there if you ever encounter something like that. These official or unofficial reports never say feral people. They usually say unidentified human presence, and then the case is closed or it's sealed. And I'm not saying that there's an underground society beneath our feet. All I'm saying is in the national parks, especially in Appalachia, people tend to go missing downward, like into the cave system, into underground mine shafts, into underground tunnels. So my question becomes, who's actually down there, or what is down there? Is it wildlife that we've never documented? Is it cave-adapted humans? I'm talking like small, isolated communities that went underground generations ago. Or is it something else completely? I'm just saying, y'all ever seen The Descent? Listen, I'm not claiming an answer. All I'm saying is the feral cave people theory is the only one that fits the pattern.
Guys, I think there's something out here with me. I swear there's something up on that tree. Do you guys see that? I swear I saw something. Hello? There's something right there. There's something right there.
There are several stories about disappearances and wild people being in the Appalachian Mountains. Actually, there are stories from all across America of these feral people in the national forests. Have you heard about it yet? The whole issue with the feral people is no one can 100% disprove it. Up in the mountains, down in the valleys, and the places where people don't travel that often, the more secluded places are said to be feral people or wild men. Some people claim that they're Bigfoot, or that Bigfoot are actually wild men, vice versa. And these unidentified people or cryptids are all cannibals, and they are eating up the hikers and the campers. It's said that these feral people usually hunt in groups and that they're not typically alone whenever they're out in the woods. One of the most famous stories of the feral people and disappearances is about a 6-year-old boy who was about to be 7 named Dennis Martin who went missing. It was back in the 60s, and he went out with his family for Father's Day. They were camping the Appalachian Trail. They got to a spot and met another Martin family, and Dennis was playing with their children. And they were deciding to sneak up and scare the family members. And Dennis was never seen again. Somebody heard him scream. And someone spotted a feral-looking man that might have packed him off. Or it was a Bigfoot. No one really knows. Some people even say he was abducted by aliens. But for the most part, it was the feral people. It's stated that these feral people will stalk you. If you take a wrong turn in the woods or on a trail, they will hunt you down in the middle of the night. There have been several stories from campers along the Appalachian Trail, or even just hiking out in the woods somewhere, talking about people just creeping up on them. And it starts slow. Usually it starts with them walking around their tent or watching them from the wood line, and then they wait for their time to attack. One time a man was in his hammock and he was drug off and tied in it, and the only way he got out was he cut himself loose. Park rangers have even spoke about the feral people that might be out in the woods, and some say it's a legend, but some of them really don't. They say they go out in the woods in the most desolate spots and they find camping grounds. And I'm talking about huts and caves, the systems that people have been living in. There's proof in these desolate spots that somebody's been staying there. Now, are they feral? Who knows? Are they fugitives? Who knows? Are they an old Native American tribe that has learned to adapt to different surroundings and never settled to be anything else but what they've always been? Some people have claimed that these are Native American tribes that did not go out on the Trail of Tears. They escaped and have stayed in the mountains ever since. Whether this be myth, legends, or truth, there have been encounters with feral people on the trails.
And yet we found another creepy thing as we were walking. You can see my parents' house right here. Like, there's the chicken coop. And look at what we just found. Okay, now you can see my parents' house is right there. Here's a rope connected to a metal pole. And Caleb, you have no idea what this is?
Never seen this in my life.
So, yeah.
What is this?
What is that?
Looks like metal.
Yeah, you guys need to start, like, set up cameras or something back here, because there's something weird going on back here.
Dude, what? This isn't like tree wood. This is... What the heck?
Buggy down here. I don't know what that is. Somebody's trying to set something up here. What is that? Oh, look. It's like a post or something.
What?
Ew, it's covered in mud. Oh, it goes all the way down there. What in the world is that? Ew. And you have no idea what this is?
Nope. How did...
You have to understand that when you go into the Appalachian Mountains, you are entering into another realm. And there is a set of unspoken rules that you must follow. Rule number 1, if you hear something calling your name, right, you didn't. There is nothing there. And you should not respond. Do not say hello. Do not say, who is it? Just run away. Because something is trying to gain permission, and by you acknowledging it, you are allowing it to come after you. If you hear screams in the mountains, right, you didn't. And do not go towards the direction of the screams to try and help. Because once again, something is trying to lure you. If you see people, you don't. If you hear crying, you're not hearing it. Do not respond to this at all, because you are giving permission to whatever is in those woods to come after you. Now, if you are to go camping in the Appalachian Mountains, right, you have to remember, at night, you must keep a fire going at all times. And it's not for warmth, it's not for cooking, it's to keep you safe. And if you are going to camp in a tent, make sure when you go into that tent, it is sealed up. There are no holes, there are no cracks. And if you hear any kind of screaming, yelling, or anyone calling your name, do not respond. Do not go to sleep. And if something wakes you up, stay alert, and once again, do not respond. Now, it's very important when you are walking through the Appalachian Mountains, if you come across a deer carcass, do not touch it, do not stare at it, walk away, ignore it, because this is something, once again, trying to lure you into the woods. Now, if it comes to the point that something is chasing you and it gets you and there is no escape, fight as hard as you can, whether it's a person, an animal, If it's something else, though, and you know what I'm talking about, well, you just let it get you, right? Because at that point, there's nothing you can do.
If you ever felt the chill of something watching you in the woods, you're not alone. Don't forget to subscribe. The mountains are watching. Are you? As always, stay safe, stay aware, and question everything.